Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is post-match reaction showtime at last after Liverpool were lost to Dortmund by 3-2 last night in Indiana on the first game of our pre-season tour of the United States. I'm sorry this video has taken a little bit of time to come out, but as anyone who lives in the UK knows, the game kicked off at 1 AM last night local time and I just wanted to go to bed. I thought I'm better off just watching the game this morning when I'm not going to have to, do that thing Mr. Bean does in that movie where he puts cocktail sticks in his eyes to keep them open just to get through to the full-time whistle. So I watched the game this morning. I'm finally doing the post-match reaction video. Let's get into it. Starting off with the defence that played in the first half and for the first 15 minutes or so of the second half as well. Oxlade-Chamberlain, I think, is a player we all had our eyes on for this one. It's something I've mentioned in my post-match reaction videos already this season, that I think this US tour is where we really get a measure of just how good he is, because we know he's good going forward. That much is clear. He's got those talents. We also know he's got that because he's played left wing and right wing for the youth teams as well. So that's where he originally plied his trade. The real question is whether or not he's strong enough and, positionally aware enough and sharp enough to actually deal with the demands of playing the defensive side of being a Liverpool left back. On the evidence of last night's game, not yet. And obviously, look, everything we say about young players in pre-season is caveated by the fact that A, it's pre-season, so just like the first team players, they're also not going to be 100% sharp. And B, they've got so much time on their sides, especially a player like Oxlade-Chamberlain. He's very young. He's got plenty of time to develop and learn his trade. And I'm sure he'll get much better, especially given that, like I said, he was a left winger and right winger earlier on in his career, and he only moved to left back this time last year. So it's no surprise that he's getting caught out a few times. He was definitely caught out for the third goal where he just gets sold a dream by the Dortmund right winger. He goes one way, the winger goes the other, and that's what allows him to set up the goal. That's kind of what you've got to expect from a young fullback who's learning their trade, and the most important thing is he starts to cut those things out of his game, because we've seen with players like Trent Alexander-Arnold who've come through from the academy and have made mistakes in very high profile situations, such as the poor game that Trent had at Old Trafford. If you come back from that stronger, then Jurgen Klopp is only going to back you to play matches for the first team even more off the back of that. So, not his finest game in a Liverpool shirt, but certainly we know the talent is there. He also looked threatening at times going forward, and I'd back him to iron out those creases in his game as this pre-season tour goes on. Elsewhere, I thought the defence was just a little bit sloppy. Conceding 3 goals in the space of an hour is never good, even though they were against a very, very good Dortmund side, and I think that's maybe one of the reasons that I did end up going to bed rather than staying up to watch the match, was when Dortmund's 11 came out. I thought I don't really want to stay up just to watch our defence get ripped to shreds by them, because unlike Liverpool, all of Dortmund's star attackers are back from international duty already and are firing for them on this pre-season tour. So maybe it's no surprise that they cut our defence open on a few occasions. You've also got to take into account the fact that their pre-season's gone on for a couple more games than ours has done. They've been in the US for a little bit longer, so they're slightly less rusty than we are. And of course, a strong back four is built on how often they play alongside each other. And there are, this back four of Larouci, Matip, Gomez, Klein, who's probably never played together before. So it's not necessarily a huge surprise that they did make a few errors during the game. I thought Nathaniel Klein was especially poor for the first goal, though. I just think he was completely switched off, and yeah, I suppose everyone else was, but it was really on him when the ball comes in and he just allows a Dortmund player to ghost him behind him. That's not sharpness. I think that's just, that's having a football brain. That sort of thing shouldn't go over the summer break. So, not the best game from Nathaniel Klein, but I think we all know that he's probably on the way out of Liverpool. I can't really see any role for him in this coming season. I think he's pretty much done at the club now, and it's just a matter of finding somewhere to move him on to. So that was the defence for the first hour of the match. Moving on to the midfield, I thought, again, Milner was slightly off the pace for this match, and whether or not that's a worrying sign remains to be seen. I know when he let the ball bobble and he let it go a few times by accident, the commentators were saying that the pitch was actually very dry, that the ground was sticking, the ground didn't feel right, the ball wasn't bouncing properly and stuff like that. So maybe that's why Milner just looked slightly off it at times, because he is a fantastic footballer and he's used to playing on brilliant pitches, and there were other times in the game where his passing was just, pitch perfect. and you couldn't really fault it. So maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into it. I just think obviously as he gets a little bit older, even a player as fit as he is going to slightly fall off the pace a little bit, and you just wonder whether maybe he's not going to quite cut it in games against teams like Dortmund, against the big Champions League sides, which would be a shame, of course, because Jurgen Klopp loves to use him in those kind of games. He's reliable, he's versatile, he implements Klopp's style very, very well, and he can do all sorts of things on the pitch in terms of spreading the play forward or helping out defensively. So it'd be a shame if that was the case, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I am just reading a little bit too much into what is only a pre-season game on not the best pitch in the world after all. But a midfielder that I think was very, very good in the game was Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. I just thought he looked fantastic. He was freed up a little bit more in this game by the fact that he was playing with a proper number 6 behind him. Obviously, in the last couple of games, he's played alongside Lallana and Milner, and Lallana's still learning and understanding that number 6 role, which means Ox kind of has to play slightly more withdrawn when alongside him. Now with Fabinho as a proper defensive midfielder who's going to do those duties, who's going to anchor that midfield three, Ox has been freed up to just go forward, do what he wants, do what he does best, charge forward, make the passes, make the runs, show off his skills as well. He looked very, very sharp. His on-the-ball work was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, plenty of fantastic, exciting signs from Oxlade-Chamberlain. Looked every inch the player that we were maybe missing, certainly in the first half of last season, where I think people thought we needed a Coutinho role type player who was going to play in the 3 but could easily get forward and join the attack. It's the kind of player we wanted Naby Keita to be as well, but obviously he took a little bit longer to adjust than expected, and I think Ox can certainly fulfill that role. And it's when we want to create overloads, when we just need an extra player to overwhelm the defence and help out the front 3, it looks like Oxlade-Chamberlain is going to be the man for the job there. So moving on to the performance of the attacking players in that first hour of the game, I thought one player that definitely stood out for me was Harry Wilson. Obviously, he gets his goal. It was very, very well taken. He times the run perfectly. He does everything you want from a right winger in this Liverpool side, cutting inside and making the chance in the box, but also at other times he was dropping deep, which is important because when he's playing alongside Divock Origi, you're going to have to do that. You can't just play centrally. Maybe when you're with Roberto Firmino, you can cut inside a little bit more because Firmino's going to drop deep and sometimes play a false 9 role. But if you're alongside Origi, he is a proper number 9. He's going to want to occupy that central space, and you've got to use your movement to accommodate that. And I thought Harry Wilson did that very, very well last night. I thought he was sharp. He kept the pace really, really well as well. The speed with which he moved the ball around, the speed with which he was moving around and getting into the right places at the right times was incredibly impressive. He looked like a player who was, match sharp from the amount of games he played last season. He doesn't look like someone who we've just had lurking around in the academy and thrown in for the sake of just having an extra body on the pitch in these pre-season games. So that was very, very positive. I'm very happy with the performance of Harry Wilson, and I'm starting to come around to the idea of him maybe having a role to play in the first team. Obviously, he's 22, 23 years old or something like that. He's certainly not a youngster in the same vein as Ryan Brewster or Yasser Larouci or players like that anymore. So you've got to wonder whether maybe he would actually be better off leaving Liverpool in search of first team football. But if he stays, I'd be perfectly happy with that because I think he would have a lot to offer in terms of being a squad player, especially now that he's had that match experience at Derby. So he's not necessarily coming in completely from the cold if we were to throw him in cup games or even as a substitute in some league games where the squad depth is being stretched. You've got to think about those December periods where, especially now we've got the Club World Cup as well, that is going to cause us problems, and we'll need players like Harry Wilson available to get us out of those kind of situations. So another impressive performance from him. Like I said, I criticised him a little bit in the game against Tranmere. I thought he was solid in the game against Bradford. He looked even better today, or last night even. So if he carries on doing that, then that's absolutely fine. And the more goals he scores and the more he links up with the first team players, the better, because that's what we need, really. So yeah, Harry Wilson, very good. Divock Origi, fine, did just Divock Origi things. Ryan Kent, again, I feel bad for criticising him, and I always want to be wary about criticising players in pre-season because I absolutely laid into Divock Origi in every single video I did last summer. But he just looks completely off the pace. He slows everything down, whereas Harry Wilson was completely in tune with the 1-2 touch football, the quick, sharp runs in and around the defence. Ryan Kent, just every time he got the ball, took 3 or 4 touches to actually work out what he needed to do. And when he did something, it just seemed low on quality. So he does feel like a player who is fine at Rangers or a League One club and will do absolutely fine and will get games, score goals, look a threat. But at the level that Liverpool are looking to play at, then I don't think he's got a chance in hell. And, you can see that as harsh, but it's in his best interests, I think, to actually move on and try and get some first-team football. Because at the end of the day, Liverpool got 97 points last season. We were European champions last season. we need high quality players. You know, the players we've already got are fantastic, and if you want to usurp them, you've got to have something really special about them, and I don't think Ryan Kent is anywhere near that level whatsoever. So I reckon we should probably cut our losses, cash in, and move him on this summer. So yeah, that's looking at the team that played the first hour of the game. I'm not really going to talk too much about the players that played the last half hour, because it was obviously quite hard to really work out what their performances are like, because the first 10 or 15 minutes is just a bedding in period for them, and then the last 15 minutes it's not a brilliant amount of time to judge a player on by any stretch of the imagination. It feels like I'd be harsh to really criticise anyone on that performance in that half an hour. But once again, you know, we've got to talk about Ryan Brewster. Took his pen brilliantly. That's now 120 minutes of football he's played this pre-season. He's scored 4 goals and got an assist for added measure as well. So really, really solid pre-season so far from Ryan Brewster. The penalty, he just took it absolutely brilliant. You know, whams it into the top corner. If he wants to take penalties for Liverpool, great, because at the moment, apart from Milner, who's obviously in and out of the side, we don't really have one. And, you know, if he starts getting Premier League starts, that could be a huge way of helping boost his confidence. If he can get goals from the penalty spot, if he can get himself off the mark and get a few goals in a Liverpool shirt, that will obviously help his development. So a really good sign that he's able to take them absolutely brilliantly. I thought in general his link-up play was good. It's good to see him now linking up with a few more first-team players as well. He had a proper midfield behind him there with Wijnaldum and Henderson, who were feeding balls to him, and he was playing off the shoulder and stuff like that. So that's only going to help him as well. I think we've got to think about Ryan Brewster as a first team player now, and that means he's got to be playing alongside the whole first team. At some point I'd like to see him with Salah one side and Mane the other, and like Ox and Keita and Fabinho behind him or something like that, to see how he fares, because if he wants to get into the Liverpool side, those are the players he's going to be playing alongside. So if he can work well with them, then that is of course absolutely fantastic. But yeah, once again, brilliant signs from Ryan Brewster. Apart from that, Jordan Henderson I was pleased to see him in a more advanced role as well. Obviously Wijnaldum played the 6 in that second half, and that freed up Jordan Henderson to once more play that attacking role we saw him play towards the end of the last season. I'm really pleased about that, because I personally hope he stays there. I think it's a role that suits him so much better. The number 6 role, while he could play it, it was clearly, you know, exposing the few limitations that he actually does have in his game. And now that we've got Fabinho, who is the perfect number 6, certainly for the Jurgen Klopp system, it does allow Jordan Henderson to play a little bit further forward. And obviously, you know, if Lallana's going to play the 6 as well, Wijnaldum plays it pretty well, that means we've got enough players there that Jordan Henderson can now focus on playing in that number 8 role that he does seem to be playing so well at the moment. So I do hope we see even more of him going forward into the season. But yeah, all things considered, I'm not hugely disappointed to lose the game 3-2. I think obviously pre-season is always more about performances than the scoreline. It was a shame to concede some really scrappy goals. Hopefully that's something that they can iron out, and hopefully it is just down to, you know, the fact that the players don't quite have a rhythm in terms of playing with each other. They also don't quite have match rhythm in terms of the fact they've only just got back from their summer break still. So creases that will hopefully be ironed out as we get closer to, you know, that Community Shield game against Man City, and then of course the Premier League season opener against Norwich in about, I guess about 3 weeks time now, isn't it? It's certainly not far away, so get your act together, Liverpool. But yeah, all things considered, reasonably happy with the performance. A few players there who I really enjoyed seeing, and, you know, bring on the next one against Sevilla in about 24 hours time or something like that. So yeah, that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, then you know what to do. Hit that like button down there, hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll be back soon, but maybe not right away, with a post-match reaction for the game against Sevilla in, like I said, about 30 hours time. Until then, bye for now.